Hello, we're on to module 6. We left off where the power lights and the link lights were on, and now we're looking to see how we can get the 3D light to come on and actually be able to see 3D contents on the display. Right now I have LG television playing with PS3, and the contents that I have in my PlayStation are Cars 2 movie, 3D Blu-ray movie. So at this point I'm in the menu. I've got my HDMI is connected, power connected, everything is done, the emitter is connected, and we'll go through the emitter details later furthermore. But you will see this, that if your emitter is connected, then you'll see these red flashing lights. That means it's not getting a 3D signal right now, and therefore you will see red flashing lights. If it were to get a 3D signal, it will change that from red flashing lights to blue permanent lights or stationary lights. So, having done that, one of the things that you're going to find that you need to do in order to make sure that your setup is correct is to make sure your player can accept 3D contents and that it does recognize that now you're not operating a 2D television, but you're operating essentially a 3D television. Our processor is seen by the player as more an item, and that is part of the television. So when you play the contents through the player recognizes that I am actually connected to a 3D television or projector, and therefore I can play the 3D contents. So to do so, what I would like to go, and in this case in the PS3, is I go to the settings and I go to the display setting menu and make sure that I have the setup correctly installed, and my 3D processor box is being recognized. So I go to video output settings and current output resolution 1080p. I come out and I look at, now my connection is HDMI, so I'm select that, HDMI, that's what my connection is. I choose automatic. I'm not looking for a custom design, setup of any sort here. Screen blinks. Should come back. Tells me, can I read this all right? And I say yes. Size of the display, 50 inches, fine. Now this is very important. Look at all the modes, the resolutions that are being supported. This is a communication between the player and the display, and the player saying, I can forward these resolutions because this display is capable of handling these resolutions: 480p, 720p, 1080i, 1080p, and 720p 3D and 1080p 3D. These two will not appear if our box was not connected in the equation. If I were to remove the box, take the cable from the television, connect it to PS3 and ran this display setting again, these two will disappear and you will not be able to see 3D content. The menu that you'll get when you go to the 3D content will be this television does not support 3D contents, or it's not 3D capable, and blah blah blah. So at this point I know I'm set up correctly. I have 3D activated or 3D accepted on a handshake level, and I can go forward and I can say yes, enter, and I'm not going to set up the audio output. I'm going to just say finish. I'm done. I come out of here. I can go to my video settings, and one of the other things that I want to look at and make sure that my 1080p 24 is either off. I do apologize, I did come out of that video setting. Here we go, and I'm looking for 1080p 24 is on HDMI output is on auto, and that's the setting that I want to have. So I am all set, and I go to my contents, Cars 2 Blu-ray 3D. Now, before I start here, we talked a bit about 60 Hz versus 120 Hz and whether this television is a 60 Hz or 120 Hz. The way I have my processor set up right now, both dip switches are in the up position, and I can easily show that by bringing this out in a fashion that camera can capture that, and you can see both dip switches are up. All right, so I am assuming that this particular television is going to be able to accept 120 hertz signal, and particularly when it's been advertised as 120 hertz true motion television, I would like to give it a shot and see if it'll work. So I'm connected. Once again, I am right here, Cars 2, I enter, and I should be able to get something along the lines of that. Now either the movie starting or the play mode, something that will show me the signal is going through, and my 3D LED light should come on. And I am not seeing anything. And I do see something, it comes on, but my 3D LED light is not on, and I'm seeing a 2D image. So if I press English here, and that should start the movie. And I'm getting no signal status here. Television, and if you see the light is trying, but nothing is happening. Now I get the link light and 3D light turning on. It's sending a 3D signal, but I'm not getting any image on the screen. Now, don't get alarmed. This may just mean that this particular television, as much as been advertised as 120 hertz true motion, does not accept an input of 120 hertz, which is a refresh rate. Now, when in doubt, you also have a way of checking what sort of display you have by going to the specification sheet, whether it's via Googling it or while actually getting a flyer or a pamphlet or any written material from the manufacturer of the display, looking at the specs and identifying where the vertical frequency line is, looking at that line, vertical frequency, and the value that should be in that column should be 120 hertz, and then it would be a true 120 hertz television. And most often what you'll find that televisions particularly aren't true 120 hertz, and they will have a value of 60 hertz on an input level. So let's see if I'm correct, and this really is a 60 hertz television. I'm taking the dip switch number 1 and pushing it down, recycling the power, and I'll see where I go now. The link light went off for a bit, obviously, because I had taken the power off. Well, here, in a very short period of time, my link light came on, my 3D light came on, and I have a 3D image. I have the camera can capture and see that this is actually a 3D image. This is the best way to describe a 3D image. It's not clear, it's not crisp. It's sort of ghosting, double image, 2D images colliding, however you want to, express that. But this is a 3D image, and I am getting a 3D image. And I was able to achieve that by going to 60 hertz and getting it to view. At 120 hertz, with dip switch number 1 being in the up position, I was unable to get this television to operate. So this is my setup. 3D movie is working. I can see a 3D image. I see all my lights are on. There is really nothing required at this point, because you have really confirmed that your processor is working, your television, your player are compatible with the processor or 3D signal. Everything is done. The next step would be to actually put the glasses and emitter into the motion, and be able to then view this image via RF glasses and see the depth perspective and the clarity and the beautiful image of 3D through the glasses. But right now the processor is 100% working. Everything is great. Your major step in the installation is complete. Once again, whenever you get into a position that you do not see a signal appearing on the screen, or when in doubt, take the dip switch number 1, put it into the down position, and take the power cable out, put the power cable back in, and see if that will show the image on the screen. If that does that, then you know that your input is 60 Hz. Now what you'll have to do is, when you follow the steps and the modules that come after this, and that are either for 120 Hz or 60 Hz, you know you're going to have to go to 60 Hz setup, because this is a 60 Hz television. Okay, so let's take this to the next module, and that module will talk about how to set up your glasses in the emitter.